Greetings, data wardens. Today we're talking about fundamentals. And that's going to be structured versus unstructured data and why we care and what we're going to do about it. We're going to start off right away by getting into it, starting with Syslog, the most unstructured of unstructureds. I'm just going to pop into my interface over here, and I'm going to give it the search tag equals Syslog. Now, Syslog is a common data source coming out of all kinds of things, from firewalls to endpoints to servers to IoT, is giving us logs coming out of stuff. Here on this screen, we're seeing DNS data that's coming from Syslog from my DNS server. Now, Syslog is sort of notorious because any kind of different data source can be included within it. And structured versus unstructured data refers to how that data is presented. Now, if we take a look here, we've got some patterns in how the data appears in the beginning, and then from this point forward out in the rest of the entry, it's unstructured. It's saying, yeah, there's a query of this from this IP address, which looks like something a human can look at, but that's very different from like a JSON record. As an example, JSON is a structured data format where we set the key and we set the result or the value, and that exists within the confines of the data itself. But with Syslog, we don't have any of that stuff. And so we're going to need to crack it out when we run a search. There are sort of two different strategies for what you're going to do when you're needing to collect that data and how you're going to analyze it. You can either assign structure when it's brought in and identify those fields and put those in your database, or you can be structure on read. We're going to be talking about structure on read because that's how Gravwell operates. And there's a very, very good reason for that. In that way, when you collect the data, you don't have to know things about it. You don't have to know what you want to do. You can do all that when you're in there at search time. So I'm going to type the syslog. So I'm going to invoke a syslog module here to extract out some fields. The app name, the host name, and the message. And then I'm going to pipe that into a table renderer. So I'm going to go from this raw syslog down to the bottom to extracting out according to RFC 5424 spec, which almost nobody follows, the different fields that are present within the system. So the message field is where we are getting into the actual unstructured elements to this, because Syslog supposedly has a structure. But I'm just going to scroll down here for a little bit, and we're going to see some blank lines. What are those blank lines? Well, those are log entries that do not meet the Syslog spec. If I grab for these records here, I've got these ubiquity access point logs that are present within the test environment that I'm collecting this data from. And these ubiquity access point logs look like they are Syslog, but they are distinctly not Syslog. And so if we want to crack these fields out, we're going to have to use something else to get in there and look at them. But another example, let me grab Windows events and we'll take a look at these. Windows events, as they come out of the Windows systems, are XML. But there's a challenge there, because depending on whether you collect those events from the endpoint or whether you're using Windows event forwarding to send those logs on, sometimes or the mechanism of delivery will change how those logs are collected into a log analysis system. For example, with those Windows event forwarding, you can have new lines, blank characters, etc. And sometimes the XML will get truncated. And if your analytics solution requires XML to be valid XML before it can take it in, before you can leave it for analysis, then you're going to be up a creek without a paddle, because improperly formatted data is still data that you might care about, and oftentimes is the data that you care about most in the event of a stack trace or something like that making it into your data. If your application is crashing and the stack trace logs are being intermixed into your other stuff, but stack traces don't follow whatever spec is set there, it's not valid XML, you still want to be able to collect it, you still want to be able to search it. That's why structure on read is absolutely crucial to being able to retroactively look through your data and assign those values as needed. So if I wanted to, I can say winlog, I would like to, according to XML, I would like to use the Gravwell winlog module. I'm going to extract out the computer name, and then I'm going to chart the count by computer. This is a common aggregate search that just says, oh, across my Windows logs, which computers do I have? How many logs do I have from each one? Very basic analytical search for looking at logs coming out of a Windows system. But if these are not XML, then that module will not work. But I can still search raw within the logs to find what I need. I can click here where it says Computer Bebop. I can click this. I can include this and say, only show me records with this text in it. And they're still going to be able to searchable. They're still going to be able to be actionable. You can still investigate threats. You can still investigate application performance issues in logs and events that do not have structure. And that's the most important thing, being able to retroactively apply that, because also changes in versioning of a switch, for example, from one to another might change the log format on you. And then you're going to have to use a structured read on one side of that change and a different structured read on the other side. And if you can change your structuring by simply changing your query, that's so much more flexible than having to do it before you can even get the data in. So that's it for sort of a fundamental, what is the difference between structured and unstructured data? Why is structure on read so important? Because it gives us the flexibility we need to dig into absolutely any data, no matter where it comes from, because we're operating off of those raw records, which is the source of truth. And that's how we do our data analysis and protect the organizations to which we belong. We'll see you out there.